Hi guys. So in this video, I'm going to continue on with the topic of basically young men and ways that I feel society has failed them, and just make sure the audio, yeah, it's all good. But yeah, just in keeping with the theme, been talking a lot about it, and I do talk an awful lot about it, but I'm gonna actually show you some comments that were left on this channel, right? So there was an older gentleman, gave us his age exactly, 60 years old. Still remember it. Left a lovely little message for me in the comment section. I'm going to share it with you now because I feel like you actually learn more from your haters than your fans. And as much as I appreciate all you guys who were sending me a lot of love, like Irish Celt, Greg, Robert Piercing, Shawnee, of course, and then you have. I'm actually going to give this channel a shout out now because I have it saved just so I got it right. So I'm going to get it right. It's a YouTube name, like a real abbreviated name, but I'm going to give it right now just to make sure because we all deserve a shout out. It is, yeah. So just a shout out. Leave your name actually if you haven't looked, but it's X12 then hyphen G4J. So shout out to you. Cheers for that. Then Julie as well. Julie. Thank you as well for commenting. I really appreciate it. And those are the ones that have been regularly commenting. So I appreciate it from all you guys. Um, but you do, because we all agree, you know what I mean? It's kind of, there's no room for going any further with the conversation, essentially. Sometimes there is, like sometimes you guys leave um, suggestions for what you'd like me to talk about. And as a result, we had our weekly predictions and reviews from Shawnee's question to do Guinness Six Nations review, and I'm delighted you asked because, I mean, of course, anybody have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. Apart from telling me to get the fuck off the internet, I've already gotten that one, so you won't be new to that. Greg also suggested that I do one for Scott Hutchison, which was very sad, but also one that I really enjoyed doing. I think there was a really important message behind it. But I actually find that if I delve into the people who have negative comments to leave, I learn a lot more. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. Well, rather than just dismissing it and going, we don't agree, that's the end of it. Maybe I'll have a look at the person's point of view. And I actually found that I agreed with a lot of what this fella said. So we're going to have a look at it now. I'll share my screen with you. There we are. I always look cockeyed in these videos. You can see my eyes are fine, not drifting off. But look at me. Look at that. And that's just paused it. Like at the start, of almost every video, I always look cockeyed. Move myself up. But yeah, like you can see the video it was, how society and older generations of men have completely failed young men. What are your thoughts? Kind of leaving it open there. And I just read through the description, just because I always like to give backstory. All right. So I talk about my own personal struggles, and there are many of them. I mean, we all do. We all struggle, and that's fair. I don't think anyone's necessarily worse, just different. Um, some people might have gone through more, but that doesn't mean we dismiss people just because they haven't gone through as much as we have. You know, they might not necessarily have had the tools to cope with it as well as somebody else did, so it could affect them more. So never judge anyone until you know. So like my struggles were just, fitting in with people and being autistic. I had a lot of differences in me, so I wasn't your stereotypical kid. But God knows I tried to be. Yeah, Lord knows I tried. Yeah, and this is just an interesting point that I was thinking about, and I always get some eureka moments, but you think once I leave school, everything will be fine. You can't wait to leave. And you're like, no, this shit still followed me around and is still bothering me, which is, at least I'm dealing with it now, thankfully. And I'm getting there, touch wood. I have a little mat here that's made out of branches. What's that? Um, but yeah, didn't know who to turn to. Like, and I say here, lost and confused. Didn't know who to turn to. Yeah. And like me and my brother were in school, our mum was working, so we were off at school, she was working, we were all busy pretty much all the time, which is good, but it also means you're never dealing with the problem at hand, you're not confronting it directly. Um, and I was in no man's land, like really, when I think back to it, you know, school was a nightmare for me. It really was, in more ways than one. And I played rugby. I was working while I was in school because I needed a release, so I was working and also tried to go into school. I had lads taking the piss out of me, lads trying to get me battered after school sometimes. Um, I had my parents nagging me, my mum and my dad coming at opposite ends, just butting heads with each other, go up to college, get a trade, do and it's like, what do you want to do then? Come on, tell us. It wasn't like, oh well, what do you want to do? It was we only have your best interests at heart, like what do you actually want from life? But bombarding me with different things, and yeah, I I reckon my mum and my dad both cared. But they could have handled it a lot better, let's just say, But as parents, like I mean, but it wasn't easy. I want to read you through this a little bit and kind of refer back to it. Um, yeah, and I spoke to my brother about this particular part here. So we both said it and we both kind of were laughing, going, yeah, did you ask dad for advice? Yeah. And did you feel worse after it? Yes. Because, like, whenever you'd go to him with any problems, it'd kind of be like, oh, well, what do you want me to do about it? I can't do anything for you. You've got to do it yourself. I can't solve all your problems. It's like, all right, I only had a simple question, but cheers, thanks for making me feel worse than I already did. Um, like, as you say, my brother got a concussion before. My dad literally goes, "Oh, toughen up, grow a thicker skin." Not only that, but he basically laughed and mocked my brother when he opened up to him about being bullied in school. Not only that, he didn't let my mum know, which he should have done. Because it wasn't an easy thing for my brother to admit, but that's his thing, not mine. But yeah, didn't know the extent of it at all. It didn't seem like he cared. Um, and that's the point right here. No good male role models. And boy, did I. Yeah, but that's exactly it. Like I didn't have anyone to teach me anything, and I always kept thinking, yeah, well, if I didn't ask my dad, how could I learn anything? I did ask him. I asked him a lot. I found one of his old electrician apprenticeship books, which had resistors in it, and I was doing my physics exam in college, so I asked him for help. And he just got back. Was like, "Oh, I can't remember that. That was ages ago." And then even said after the leaving cert was over, it's all coming back to me now. And I was like, "Why are you telling me that now?" And I don't know if it did. And maybe he was just saying it for to show off and pretend like he still knew it when he didn't. But either way, it's like, well, it's no use to me now. So cheers. There's no point in you telling me that. Like, my mom going through so much shit, you don't want to burden her with all that stuff. She's gone through it herself. She's got chronic pain. She's working, and there's enough stress, and there was already enough. But then I turned to other sources. I went out with groups of lads and tried finding a brotherhood, if you like, but a bunch of snakes that'd stab you in the back. Like, but that's what lads will do, and it's been proven. If you don't provide them with good male role models, they're going to go elsewhere and seek them out. That's the fucking point that I was making. And my mum's brother, my uncle, who I'm connected with now, and I'm really glad that he's okay. But he just laughed at me, mocked my autism, mocked my disability, um, just took our cousin's word over mine whenever anything happened, and that seemed to be a fucking common trend. Where everyone else's word was taken over mine and my brother's. We were just kind of laughed at and mocked. So not a very pleasant place to be. Didn't have any real good male role models. My granddad, my dad's dad, was and is still a horrible prick. Always has been. You can say I'm ungrateful. He never made me feel welcome in his home. And there's literally a perfect situation where he's complained about being lonely and has no one around. All of the older people in the family just left the house to rot, basically, left it in an awful state. The grass was overgrown, the hedges were slanting down into our garden because the neighbours, the other side of the hedge, they'd cut their side, but we hadn't cut ours. So it was just slanting over because of the weight of it. No, I don't really like my granddad. I never have, but I love my nanny. So I said, I'm going to do it for her. I'm going to put all the shit aside, and I'm also going to go. He's an old man. He needs someone to help him out. So when I went to stay with him, I did all that stuff. I cut the grass. Took me less than 5 minutes. Clipped the hedge. Spent the whole day doing the hedge and taking ivy off the roof of the shed because the shed was just, like it had been abandoned pretty much, which it had. Um, None of the wonderful older generations in my family. And like this lad is 60 that I'm going to show you in the comments. My dad is 58, turned 58 2 days ago. Happy birthday, Dad. But he didn't give a shit. He didn't do anything. Neither, well, he did actually when my nanny died, but me, him, and my brother were the only ones in that family to go down and do anything. So me and my brother did everything we were told to do and listen to the adults in our lives in the older generation. And where's it fucking gotten us? Not much. I'll tell you that. I'm going to show you now, though. Let's have a look. Let's see our friends comment. The True Scotsman. I really hope, by the way, that that show comes back with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. Season one is by far the best. But let's have a look through it now, will we? True Scotsman. So here we are now. So after I talked about it, and you can actually listen through it, like if you haven't already. But what I'm discussing is literally just problems that I've experienced. How young women have been allowed to get away with everything, pretty much being treated like queens when they act like pigs. The mistreatment that I've seen with other young men. Also talk about my friends, and how even in my small friend group, there's a lot of fatherless homes, and even where there is no fatherless homes, there's a lot of bad fathers who are very absent, as in they're off at work and then they don't want to know the kids. Just miserable, they're distant, and they couldn't care less. So you can be in the home and still be absent, if you're not helping your kids out. And I've seen a lot of that, which is sad to say, but it's the truth. Yeah, it's. I was shamed, yeah. Um, and I doubt every decision, like I say it here, but it's really true. Like this was the ideology I was raised by here. So as I was getting older, and I was miserable in school, like towards the end, like 16, 17, 18, on Prozac, fucking miserable. People are out living, having the time of their life. I went out, yeah, but I wasn't having the time of my life. I can tell you, I was binge drinking, trying weed and other drugs, and wasn't mad for drugs now, I have to say, but alcohol, I certainly indulged plenty in that. Still had my rugby training, which I am grateful for, because if I didn't have that and the gym, me and my brother used to skip school and go to the gym. At least we were doing something productive. That was what I always tell everybody. But I grew up with that bullshit idea of, you know, mum wants me to go to college. I'll amount to nothing without a degree. That's what teachers hammered into me. That's what my dad hammered into me until I got to 18. And then this is the stuff real men work on building sites or go into the army. He used to always say, the army will make a man out of you, and you're like, oh, boy, didn't you do it then? You know? Um, but then go to college. I mean, it was the right thing for me at the time and I got my degree, but struggling to fucking find anything with it, I'll tell you that. My dad told me that that degree I was going for was a bullshit degree and it'd get me nothing. Got a job out of it. It's actually a good degree. The only problem is that everybody's getting them now, because everybody was told go to fucking college. As a result, who was standing out from the crowd? Nobody. So we all listened to everybody and went to college, and now people are giving out to us for it. Like, what the fuck? And it's young women that are graduating more than young men, I might add. Why that is, I'll let you be the judge. Yeah, he did. He shaved me, and I used to one scene actually in adolescence, and I talked about that a good bit. One scene that really upset me. Now, the final scene where he kisses the teddy bear had me in tears, like it did. But another one was, when Stephen Graham was talking, and Eddie in the show, but he was talking about bringing Jamie to football and how crap he was, and he was crap. We brought him to football, and he was terrible. But he wasn't annoyed at the fact that Jamie was terrible. He was annoyed at how he reacted. The other dads were laughing at him, and I turned my head in shame. I should have stood up for him. I should have done more. And he should have done, yeah, but it's not easy in the moment. That scene really hit home with me. And like when I started playing football, I was crap as well, but I trained my arse off to get good at football. I became the captain of the team at one stage and got player of the year. And my mum always said it. And fairness to her, I appreciated her honesty. She was like, "Look, when you started, you were shy, but you trained really hard and you got good at it." I was like, "I appreciate the honesty," but it's true, And I mean, I don't think lying to kids does them any good, but I did. I've always had that determination to prove something, and I remember just the deflating feeling of my dad telling me how many mistakes I made. And look, it makes you get better, it gives you a drive to improve. But he literally told me every bad thing I did. And I was like, "Oh, did you see me? Were you happy?" He was like, "No, you did this wrong. You weren't quick enough here. You looked unfit." And look, I understand you got to have high standards if you want to get somewhere, but it was always the negative. There was never the positive. Didn't matter what you did. You did literally. It was as I said before. When I graduated college, I didn't think you were able for it. I genuinely didn't think you had it in you to finish that. So thanks. You didn't have any belief in me from the start. Cheers for that. And not only that, it's like, well done, son. But now, like, that's not the hard work done. You have to go and get a fucking job now. Doesn't appreciate that I'm sending CVs out, but I'm getting nothing back, which is disheartening to say the least. But that scene really hit home with me and really upset me because it was like, while I actually got good at football, I can understand the pain of not getting your dad's approval. And sport's the best way to do it. Like, let's be honest, you take your kid to football on a Saturday, and that's the way to do it. But here we are. We get to his comments now. So, and we get to my replies also. That winger, by the way, Louis B. Albury is insanely good. But yeah, let's have a look. I'm 60. I get treated like garbage by most young people in customer service. I just went to Walmart tonight, so obviously American. I just went to Walmart tonight, and everyone there was acting like someone died because I was asking where something is. They had all the oils mixed, just trying to ask a simple question, and they act like I was pulling teeth or they were just openly hostile. The women were openly hostile, and then men were subdued and forlorn and wouldn't make eye contact. The women were bold and mean and just downright nasty. Maybe look at yourselves and how you treat older folks that never did anything to you personally. I'm a poor, hard-working guy that struggled all his life just to survive. You want to say I failed you or young men in general, you can fuck off. Nobody did a damn thing for me ever, and they can all fuck off too. Quit crying and suck it up. And so I gave him a nice little response here because he's literally crying there, whinging about how bad young people are, which a lot of people this age do. Do you see the irony in that? You're crying about how young people are nasty and all and bad people. You actually, who do you mention? Young women were openly hostile. Women were bold and mean. The men were subdued, apathetic, forlorn. Those are the words you're using. And if you go through any of my videos, you will literally see that's exactly what I say. And yet you say that, it's me. I need to quit crying and suck it up. You're literally moaning about young people here. But I give you a lovely little response because this is my experience. So we'll show you that now. There's plenty of older people, and especially people around your age, have treated me like shit, pal. So if you young people treated you like shit and now you're crying about it, this is my response. I always showed respect for my elders, but did I get it back? Fuck no. I was simply expected to do more. I got treated like absolute shit by the older people in my family, And I served a lot of older people who were extremely rude to me. So you can fuck off, pal. This is my experience, not yours. I did work hard and it got me fuck all. If you actually watch through more of my videos, you'll actually see that I agree with a lot of what you've said. I speak a lot about how rude young women are and how subdued and whipped young men are. Young women get treated like princesses but act like pigs. Young men are apathetic and are subservient to women. Guess what, pal? I agree with you. But don't start assuming I'm just like all them because I have been treated like garbage by them also. Have a watch through my videos before you make assumptions about me. You know nothing about me or my personal experience. As you say, suck it up, buttercup. Show a bit less of that. Show more of this. And then I'm asking a genuine question here. I genuinely wanted his response to it, but he never gave it. Because I was there thinking to myself, well, hold on, let's have a dive into this. Ask yourself why so many young women treat you poorly and young men are apathetic and can't even be bothered to make eye contact with you. How were they raised? Let's delve into the problem. You know, they didn't just lick that up off the fucking ground, did they? Like, if you think it's okay to treat your elders like shit, you obviously weren't raised with much respect. You weren't raised to respect your elders anyway, that's for sure. And I see a lot of that, so I'm not disputing what you're saying, but don't have a go at me and tell me to quit crying and suck it up when you're literally crying about all the young people. You're literally saying it, you know. You want to say that I failed you or young men in general, but I haven't met you. You know, you haven't failed me. You know, maybe you failed young men. Have you failed me? Well, I don't know you, but it's an attitude thing. It's a whole general thing altogether. You know, like use your brain. Do you know what I mean? It's obviously not me talking to you personally, but it's looking at a problem. Clearly, young men have been failed by somebody. You know, you can't just keep blaming them and say it's all their fault. How were they raised? I think it's a pretty valid question, but you haven't answered that. You've just decided to have a go at me for bringing up a point, and you know you haven't given anything really of value. But I'm glad to hear your story because I don't think the way you were treated was fair, and I'll say it here. How were they raised? I talk about appreciating what your parents sacrificed for you, and I empathize with what my parents went through. And you'll see in the video if you watch it that I clearly do. So like I know my dad didn't have a good life, so I appreciate that. I'm sympathetic of what he went through because it doesn't seem like a very pleasant life. And I've also had the wonderful pleasure of staying with my granddad and seeing what a lovely human being he is. Accused me of robbing him. He wanted me to pay for electricity that he didn't even have to pay for. Because when you get to 70 in Ireland, you qualify for an electricity and heating allowance. And yet he looked for problems where there were none. It literally seemed like the perfect scenario. I bought him shopping before, and then he said, "Oh, I'll give you the money for it." How much was it? I said, "You're my grandfather. You don't have to pay me anything for getting you the shopping." And it wasn't anything big. So I was like, "No, no, keep your money." He was like, "I won't be in any man's debt." As if I'd be holding it over him. You know what I mean? As like my fucking granddad, why would I hold it over you? But then he accuses me of robbing from him and all this stuff. And just didn't appreciate that I was cooking, cleaning. The garden looked lovely because of what I did. Nobody else. No, none of the wonderful Gen Xers or, you know, boomers from your generation. If you're 60, that'd be what you were. None of them. They didn't give a shit until there was money in it for them. That's my family, and that's what they fucking did. So you know nothing about me, and that's my experience. So you suck it up. How about that? But anyway, I do appreciate what they went through. My mum lost a sister very young, godmother, and God rest Kathy's soul, my auntie who I never met sadly. But yeah, you know that had a devastating impact on my mum's family. So I don't know what that's like. I can't empathise, but I can sympathise. And my dad as well, growing up in that environment where he was just pretty much neglected. Not very easy, I wouldn't imagine. But don't you want to do better? I know it's not easy to do, but you would think you'd want to do better, but maybe he didn't have the tools. I don't know. Ironic because he's an electrician. See what I did? But yeah, I'm just talking about my own experience because you talked to me about sucking it up, sucking it up. And I listened to everyone's advice from your generation, everyone, and I decided, look, could I have been a difficult kid at times? Absolutely, yeah. Could I have been a little bit sensitive? Yeah. It'd be a lie to say that I wasn't. And sometimes I did definitely need to just go, you know what, get on with it and stop crying. Yeah, for sure. And I did, but I'll talk you through it now. Worked at construction sites doing the worst possible jobs, and yet supposed to be grateful for it. You want to hear this? I clean construction site toilets. You want to say I should be grateful for that? They're fucking disgusting. Picked up pissy overalls, the Snickers workwear. So they were on the ground. The stink of piss off them. They were fucking rotten. Picking up cigarette butts, monster cans, all this stuff, hoovering stairs. The buildings and all just got spoken down to like I was a piece of shit. Literally, they had so much contempt for me, the older lads on the sites. And that's not just me, there's lads that get away worse than what I did, which I don't think is fair. I don't think it's right. You can say just suck it up if you want, but suicide rates are through the roof in construction sites. So I know this because my uncle works as a health and safety officer, and he said he literally talked a lad down from throwing himself off a building. He said it was a very upsetting moment, as you can imagine. That's not an isolated incident because it's a toxic fucking place to be. And young fellas are called soft, weak, told, oh, you just need to get on with it. And it's shit like this, just, quit whining and suck it up. No, fucking won't. And people don't like the fact that young men are not sucking it up anymore. They're not taking shit. They're actually standing up for themselves. Who doesn't like that? Older generations of men and young women. Why? Because they want someone to build their fucking buildings for them. Young men have to keep it going, so they're shaming them into doing it. You know, young women don't want to have to get their hands dirty, and the older generations of men want to shame people and go, "Oh, you need to just grow a thicker skin for jobs that they would never do." As I say in many videos, I've worked with lads who were in their 40s and 50s as labourers, literally doing the worst of the worst jobs, the backbreaking labour that goes into your wonderful buildings that you all live in. Really nice guys, really sound, hardy lads. Yeah, if you were doing a bad job or you were taking the piss, they'd fucking let you know about it. But we'd sit down for lunch, have a great chat, and they asked me what I wanted to do with my life, and I was like, I got an offer for college, but I think I'll do this or just keep at this. They were like, no, go to fucking college. Don't waste your life doing this. My back is broken. Don't see my kids. My knees are at me. Um, I drink way too much. I gamble way too much, and it's not a life worth having. You work for every penny you make, and that's absolutely true. You might get well paid, but even the lads that get well paid, they fucking work. It's an honest living, as they say. But do you want to have your fucking knees blown out, your back blown out, and all that? You know, and as they say, the old cliche, there's a shelf life on it. There really is. Um, there's a shelf life on manual labour because eventually it will get too much. But look, you want to say suck it up? No, you suck it up. How about that? And quit crying. Take a bit of your own advice. True Scotsman. Be a hardy Scotsman there for us. But yeah, apart from working in those places and getting treated like dog shit by who? Older men, because it's dominated by older men. Construction sites. I worked in the hospitality sector. I don't know if you actually did work in it. I read back over your comment, and it seems like you're just talking about people who do. Don't know what you do for a living, but I have worked in the hospitality sector, and I empathise with anyone who has, because the way some people have treated me, guess who most of the complaints come from? You guessed it, people like you, people from your generation. In fact, a lot of the young people I serve were quite pleasant. Bit dopey, a bit ditzy, yeah, but in general, pleasant, apart from one lad that I was talking about here. Yeah, one lad who wasn't ordering food from our place. He was a few years older than me, though. I'd say about 5 or 6 years older. And he threatened me, squared up to me like that because I asked him to leave because he hadn't bought anything in the shop, just trying to act like a hard man. But apart from that and a few dopey kids, you know, all the complaints are from people of your generation moaning and saying, like bitchy things like the cheese wasn't melting enough in their sandwich or, the light was shining at the wrong angle. And I got ridiculous fucking complaints. So you can go fuck yourself. Take that, shove that in your pipe and smoke it. Like it was always people from the older generation, and my brother served people as well in the hotel just up the road from us. And he was wearing a mask because it was COVID. And he was literally told by a fella who he knew was going to complain. He was just an arsehole, rude, didn't say please or thank you at all, which I experienced a lot from your generation. Yep, that's right. Boomers, 60-year-olds plus. It was all, I want this, I want that. You literally thought as a fucking toddler to say please and thank you. But you lot don't do it, do you? And a complaint was made because he didn't smile. You're wearing a fucking mask. My brother wouldn't be the most smiley of individuals, but do you want the big fucking, yeah, yes, sir, big fake American smile, the cop. And on top of that, a lot of women that I worked with treated me like shit. Would they give you an extra helping hand? Absolutely not, unless there was something in it for them. The only time I ever got helped out by a woman that I worked with was when they wanted to go out and were having a night out and gave out that I was taking too long. That's when they helped. They wouldn't help me just because, I needed an extra helping hand and they'd been there longer than me and I wasn't, very knowledgeable and everything. They only helped me when they needed something. So there you are. When I worked in the same hotel as my brother washing dishes, the only people who came in to help me when I was fucking stacked pile high because we had a rush. We only had one person on washing dishes. We should have had two, but we only had one at times. Because that's these big businesses for you. They don't have enough staff. They don't give a shit. They're trying to maximize profits, but don't appreciate all the hard work that goes in. The only people that would come in and help me were the head barman, who didn't have to at all, and my brother. Those two came in and helped me. Did any of the young women help me? No, not a fucking chance. And who was the boss of the whole place? Not hiring enough people and trying to, maximize as much profits, even though he's a fucking multi-millionaire. He was an older man from your fucking generation. So there we fucking are, aren't we? The head barman was a millennial, so like in his 30s or something, and then my brother is obviously, 2 years younger than me. They're the ones that helped me out, not people from your generation and not young women. And notice how you give out about young women. I give out about them as well because they're entitled, they're spoiled, they expect to be treated like the fucking princesses, but don't do anything for it. Young fellas are apathetic, they couldn't give a shit about anything. And I get it, it is annoying to deal with, but ask yourself why. Why would you have anything worth celebrating when you're just treated like shit all the fucking time? Told you're a wuss, you're weak. But then women are saying, oh, you can't speak to me like that, whenever they try to be masculine, they're just shamed. So ask yourself that fucking question. So I want to say you personally failed me. No, you personally didn't because I don't know you. We've had no interaction bar this lovely exchange. But your generation certainly have failed a hell of a lot of men. Absolutely. Like you can blame young people all you want. We've literally a lot of us have done exactly what you guys asked us to do and went to college, and now you're trying to shame young men into going into construction because you don't have enough construction workers. That's on you. That's not on us. So get over yourself. It's bullshit. I'm talking about it right here. Yeah, it's actually gas, right? So I used to get called all sorts of names, told I was going too slowly, even though customers gave me complaints. Um, Rarely enough, sometimes it would. But if someone came up and said, "Sorry, is that ready?" I'd be like, "Yep, it'll be with you now in a second." They were like, "Thank you." I got more compliments on my sandwiches than complaints because I used to actually put a decent amount of ingredients, not just a fucking palm of ingredients like you're supposed to. That was the rule. But I was like, fuck this. I'm going to throw out half the stuff anyway. And I was like, they're paying good money. I'm going to give them value for money, you know? And I worked as a kitchen porter. I worked in a shop selling vapes, not anymore. I worked in a cafe for over a year while in college. I also did part time work. I worked in JD Sports as well. I worked my arse off and completed 4.5 years of college on top of that. So is that not sucking it up? Yeah, I'll say that to you, true Scotsman. Like I respect everybody. I've always respected my elders. Me and my brother actually got treated worse because we were very obliging, I would say. We get frustrated, yeah, sure, but everybody does, you know. I tried showing people respect just until they gave me no reason to anymore because they were just nothing but ungrateful. Met a lot of ungrateful people who don't appreciate what I do. They only give out when I don't do it for them anymore. You build up a level of expectation, and then that's when people are like, "Oh, you have to keep doing it." It's like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not putting myself out for those who wouldn't put themselves out for me. And you hear the way you're talking about people being rude and downright nasty. I wasn't. I was always friendly and obliging when I worked in a shop. And like at times I was very, very depressed. But I still tried my best not to let my problems affect how I worked. And I was given no real sympathy. I was still expected to keep up. I got really bad brain fog. So yeah, it was quite dozy and that will happen. You know, brain fog is a symptom of depression. Young men are getting more and more depression, meaning they're going to have more and more brain fog, which is why you're seeing this subdued and miserable look on their face because they couldn't care less because they're not getting any fucking reward for what they're doing. And like, so why would they be happy? So I think you're talking some sense, but also shite. And that whole thing, you want to say I failed, you want to. All right, well, let me put this to you then. What would you call my dad, who was only 2 years younger than you, I might add, leaves when I'm five. My brother is only three, going on four, and I was nearly 6 years old. I might have been six at the time, actually. And I'm just thinking he would have been in school. But it's something like that. The event I remember well, and I know we were both in school at the time, and he started young, so he could have been just going on four. But anyway, not important. I was either five or six at the time, and it was our Christmas carol service, and he left, kicking the door, going ape shit at my mum, having an argument in front of us. And up until then, like, he was never around. He was always away with work, going abroad or doing whatever. Like, so he was never there, even when he was technically still part of the family. So we never got to see him. He wasn't a big influence in our lives. And then when he came back, it was nothing but arguing, mocking me because of my autism, making fun of me, calling me aggro, calling me every name under the fucking sun, making me feel just angry, feeling like I didn't belong. And I didn't belong in school. I felt miserable and alienated there. And then I felt that when I came home. Like, what would you call when you're 9 years old getting thrown on the ground and punched, kicked in the back? Would you say that that's not failing, according to you? Or you get into a fight outside, and before even hearing your side of the story, he just hits me over the head, drags me to my room, um, abandoning us twice. Abandoning us actually when our grandmother had just died because our mum wasn't giving him enough attention. Would you say that's being a strong man? I certainly wouldn't. Or our granddad and every other man in our family just fucking mocking us all the time, making us feel unwelcome because we're overweight. Hadn't seen my granddad in over a year. The first thing he says to me is, "Oh Jesus, that's some belly on you," rather than, "Oh, nice to see you." Being ungrateful for everything I did for him, telling me that I'm stubborn and all this shit just because I'm not telling them everything because I don't want to, because I know that he'll use it against you. He remembered stuff when he fucking wanted to. Um, my uncle abandoning our cousin, just going and leaving him, taking pleasure in the fact that my auntie was struggling to raise him on her own because that meant that, oh yeah, she's not getting on very well. Not taking into account that your son is struggling, got another uncle that just hasn't worked in over 20 years and sits on his arse, doesn't clean, doesn't cook, doesn't do fucking anything, does whatever he wants to do, never brought the kids anywhere. So yeah, I would say that generation have well and truly failed me anyway. Don't know about you, but I would say that's failing, wouldn't you? Beating your kid, telling him he's useless, not helping him out when you can. When he asks you for genuine advice, you just call him soft and tell him he needs to grow thicker skin. What fucking useless bullshit is that? So it is people from your generation because that's what they fucking said to me. They haven't helped me at all, at all. I haven't had any good male role models. Neither has my brother. And I know plenty of other people who haven't had any good male role models. They just shame them when they ask for help. They're not there when they need them. And look, I get that being a shoulder to cry on is more of a feminine thing, but there's plenty of strong men that do that. And when you genuinely need them, they're there for you. You know, I've seen manly men be a shoulder to cry on for their sons and for other kids in the family. You can do it, but just the men in my family didn't do either. Whenever I got into trouble or people were threatening me, they threatened to kick my head in. My dad literally said, "You're big enough and bold enough to deal with it yourself. I can't deal with all your problems. How about some of them?" You know, you give me money. That's about it. You know, and yeah, recently we've kind of built up a relationship a bit more, but he always just put me down. He always just pointed out what I did wrong. He never seemed to be grateful for all the things I did well. I would say he failed me. And as I say, he's not the only man in the family that's failed me. They all have. They were never there. They didn't do anything for us. When both our nannies died, Granny Judy on her mum's side, God rest her soul, and Lena as well, just say a prayer for her. A prayer for both of them because great women. I love both of them, and I genuinely did. I loved them both dearly. But guess who were the only ones of the family going down doing anything? Were me and my brother, and then our mum or our dad, depending on which grandparent or grandmother it was. Just us, nobody else. So they all talked a good game. But when push came to shove, we were the fuckers that showed up and did it. Didn't get a fucking any bit of appreciation for it. So you want to just lump me in with all them. And I guess it would be a bit hypocritical because maybe, yeah, I'm lumping you in with everybody else, but you've talked about a lot of young people. I'm not like a lot of young people because I've actually got respect for older people, but it doesn't get appreciated. And that's the problem right there. So, yeah, I would say your generation have definitely failed young men. You can cry about how a few young people have been nasty to you. That's because their parents didn't bring them up to respect people of your age. That's not my fault. I do my best. I've been disrespected by people my own age who have no morals, couldn't give a shit about anything if it's not on the fucking on this yoke, TikTok and fucking scrolling and all that shit. I tried to do better, but guess what? It got spat back in my fucking face. Um, so I will say people from your generation have failed young men, not just, you know, well, older men are quite, yeah, they are to blame in a lot of ways because this shit show wouldn't be here if they actually put it their arse to do their job and actually play a part in a child's life, but they don't. And I get that some dads have to work. Yeah, I get that. Some dads have to work very hard, 6 days a week sometimes. But there's a lot of dads that don't appreciate the time they do have with their kids. They go off and do their own thing and they're never around. So, you are failing your kids if you do that. And you can make time for them if you want to. My dad had plenty of opportunities to make time with us, but he was either nursing a hangover or he was abroad. He just didn't give a shit. And then after leaving us twice, three times actually, so abandoning us three times, and me and my brother still keep in contact with him. He has the audacity to text both of us and say, if you want to get to know your old fella, make a fucking effort. See, you make a fucking effort. You see dads that have done nothing wrong, really. It's just that the parents have gotten a divorce and they are groveling to the kids, and the kids don't want to know them. We never did that. We always left the door open for them, even after lots of shit happened. We still kept the door open for them. I tried cutting all ties, I just couldn't, and it didn't make me feel any better. It's not the kind of person I am. So, yeah, I will definitely blame your generation. They have fucked over a lot of young men, and I'm not apologising for that. But I think it's interesting to hear what you've said because I will show you again. Nobody ever did a damn thing for you. Well, that's great. Yeah, maybe they should have done. You wouldn't be so bitchy. Let's see it again. The women were openly hostile. The men were subdued. So, like, blasé. That's been my experience also. Women are catty and bitchy and think they can do whatever they want. And the young men are just like, yeah, yeah, all right, go on, get you that. When the women are there, like, oh, don't say that to me, or what the fuck? They look at you with, like, how dare you ask me for something? I'm too good for that. I'm not fucking doing that. That's what they're like. Young men are like, oh yeah, yeah, there you go. So they do it for you, but I understand that. Yeah, it's a lot of fucking effort to get them to do it. But as I say, I actually agreed with you on a lot of this. You've said the women were openly hostile. The women were bold and mean and just downright nasty. I have experienced this myself. I have been in the workplace and I have experienced it a lot. I would say I've had, yeah, construction sites, you know what you're going to get, right? But in retail, apart from like one prick of a boss that I had who just was out to really get me, wind me up, it was women that I had an issue with all the time. They were just entitled. They'd start putting on the waterworks. I even got accused of bullying when I stood up for myself. So it's complete bullshit. Look at yourselves. Well, I don't treat older folks like that. Even my granddad, who I don't really like and never had any respect for him really because he never gave it to me. Literally, I said, I will give him respect because he's my grandfather. That's the only reason. I still couldn't be nasty to him because despite the fact that he's treated me like unadulterated shit my whole life, he's my grandfather and I still have respect for him. Not that he's ever given it back. So you can fuck off, pal. Yeah, that's right. So nobody can fuck off as well. See that? Nobody ever did a damn thing for me. Nobody can fuck off. All right, so can I fuck off then, or what's happening here? Why don't you quit crying and suck it up? Just a thought, because you are doing a lot of crying here. They had the oils mixed. Oh, God love you. That must have been dreadful. I had some of the most ridiculous complaints from people of your generation. Like I say, there was one lad that literally acted like a spoiled child. He literally picked up a sandwich and threw it on the plate because the cheese wasn't melted enough and had a temper tantrum from your generation. So why don't you guys all quit crying and suck it up? How about that? Yeah, just thought I'd bring your attention to that, guys. What do you think? Um, get your thoughts on what Troop Scotsman has to say. Um, I just feel like that was a really good example of they quit crying and suck it up. um, as you say, older men and young women, they want somebody else to build their dream, and they don't like the fact that young men are saying, "I'm not fucking taking this shit anymore." I'm not being treated like shit by you, telling me that I'm a coward and I'm a wuss and I'm a pussy and all this stuff. And then young women going, "Oh, you need to be more of a man and support me and do all that." What are you doing for me? What are you fucking doing to help me out? People really don't like that. Young men are actually starting to stand up for themselves and grow a backbone. People don't like it, do they? I'm delighted to see it because God knows we've been given enough shit. So people like him can fuck off, as far as I'm concerned. Raises a valuable point, though. You should respect your elders, yes, but they must respect you too. Every like people seem to think that respect is just a given when they haven't earned it. Just because you're older doesn't mean you get respect. You have got to earn that. You treat me like shit, I'm going to treat you like shit, and don't start crying about it. A lot of you lot cry about it, but then tell us we've to man up and toughen up and just suck it up. Quit crying and suck it up. You don't do that. You whinge and moan and cry and act like children when it suits you, but we're expected to act like adults. So, bit hypocritical, don't you think? True Scotsman. But anyway, guys, we'll leave it on that. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. As you can see, I'm a bit sunburned. But yeah, love to know your thoughts on this, guys. So please let me know. And just before I end this, some people are saying to me, "Oh yeah, you talk about mental health, and yet you respond in such an angry way to people when they criticize you." And I'm like, I mean that genuinely when I talk about mental health, but I'm not going to treat somebody nicely if they treat me like absolute shit. I'm not going to be like, "Oh, that wasn't very nice," and that was it. No, you want to treat me like a dickhead, I'm going to treat you like a fucking dickhead. And that's what we learned in compassion focused therapy. It's not compassionate to yourself to let people walk all over you. So I'll be nice to anyone that's nice to me. Absolutely. I'm not going to just start picking on people who are treating me well, because that's an arsehole thing to do. But I'm certainly not going to take shit off people. You want to make a dickhead comment like our friend did there, I'm going to get something back. You know what I mean? It's not compassionate to yourselves. And here's a lesson for you all. If you let people walk all over you or prey upon the fact that you'll be nice to them regardless of what they do to you, they're gonna fucking use it against you. So you gotta defend yourselves. As you say, I go out my way to help people that are good to me, but I will not tolerate bullshit. So we'll leave it on that note, guys, before I go off on another rant, which I'm prone to doing. All right, see you in the next one.